All right, so we can now create, read, update, and delete contacts. Now I want to work on filtering. So for filtering, I want to have an input right above the contacts that we can just start to type in, and it will just filter based on the name. We could base it on whatever, but I think, yeah, we'll do the name, maybe the email as well. So that's what we're going to do. Now we're going to have a piece of state dedicated to filtered contacts, because the way that we're doing this, we're filtering contacts that have already been fetched. In this case, they're hard-coded, but even when we deal with our API, they've already been fetched. It's not like we're hitting some special search endpoint or anything like that. So in addition to having contacts, let's create filtered, which by default is going to be null. Now, this filtered is just going to be an array of filtered contacts that basically match whatever we put in the input. Okay, that's what ultimately that's what's going to be put here. Now let's go down here and create our filter function. So I'll just copy this, and let's call this filter. We'll say filter contacts, and it's going to take in a piece of text to filter, and then we're going to dispatch the type of filter contacts, and then we're going to send along the text as the payload. So that's our filter contacts. We might as well create the clear filter as well. I'm going to copy clear current because it's very similar. All we're doing here is setting filter, let's say clear filter. We're just setting filter back to null. So let's say clear filter. Okay, so now let's handle both of these dispatches in our reducer. So I'm going to go down, just go to the bottom here, and let's say case filter contacts, and we want to return ... state. Okay, so what are we going to do here as far as filtering? This is probably going to be the most complicated part of this reducer. So we want to take the filtered part of the state, which by default is null, and we want to set this to state.contacts, which will give us all the initial contacts, and then we want to run the filter method. Okay, so filter is a high order array method. It's similar to, it works how map and for each and all those work, but we can filter things out. So let's say contact, actually I think we used it up here, didn't we? Yeah, we used it in our delete, but we're going to do something a little more complex than that. So we're going to say for each contact, I'm going to open up some curly braces here, and I'm going to create a regular expression. So I'm going to say const regex, and let's set that to a new regular expression. And the regular expression is just going to be the text. We just want to match that text. So let's put some backticks here. And the text is coming into the payload, right? So we can say action dot payload, and then I'm just going to put a parameter here of GI, which is global and insensitive, so our case insensitive, because we want it to match whether it's uppercase or lowercase. Now we want to return from here. We're going to say return, and I'm going to get the contact dot name. Remember, we're still in the filter. So this is an individual contact. We're going to say contact name, and then we're going to call match. And we can match against this regular expression. So we're going to pass in the regex. So that will return anything where the name matches the text that's passed in. Now I'm going to match the email as well. So we'll say or if the contact dot email dot matches the regular expression, which is just the text. All right, so let's go ahead and save that. And there's probably a few ways you can do this. I think this is just a pretty easy way. Now for the clear filter, it's going to be pretty simple. I'm just going to copy clear current because it's very similar, except say clear filter, except instead of setting current to null, we're setting the filtered to null. All right. And make sure that you have filtered here, not contacts. Okay, we're getting the initial data from the state, the contacts in the state, but we're filling the filtered value here. All right, so I think that we're good on with the action. Let's make sure we add to our provider down here. We want to add a few things actually. We want the filtered part of the state. So state dot filtered. And then we also want to add those methods, which we have, what do we have? Filter contacts and clear filter. Or we won't be able to access them. So make sure that you add those and we should be good. So now we're going to go to our, let's see, we're actually going to create a new component in components contacts. Let's say new file, and let's say contact filter.js. So contact filter is going to be a form. I'm going to do RACF to do some scaffolding here. We're going to be using context, so let's bring that in. We'll say import context contact and contact context. And then let's initialize it down here. So we'll say const contact context, set that to use context, which we have to bring in. And let's pass in that. Okay, right here we'll say use context. All right, now I'm also going to use the use ref hook here. I haven't introduced that just yet. If you're familiar with references in React, it's basically a way to reference an actual DOM object. And it's an alternative for forms. I use them for simple forms like this. We actually could have used a ref with the well, no, actually, yeah, I guess we could have used it in the GitHub project. But let's bring in use ref and I'll show you how this works. Okay, so we're not actually going to create a piece of state for our input, for our filter input. We're going to use a ref. So down in the return here, let's create a form. And I'm going to put an input here. And we're going to give this a ref attribute. And I'm going to say this reference, we're going to use text. We can use whatever we want. I'm just going to say text. And then let's do a placeholder. And we'll say filter contacts ... And then it's going to have an on change because that's what I want it to filter is right when it changes. Okay. Then we're going to go up here and we're going to want to, first of all, create our on change. So const on change and pass in our event parameter. Okay, and then we can get the ref value. Actually, one thing we have to do is initialize that ref value by saying const text equals and then our use ref hook. And it's going to be nothing by default. Okay, so down here we can get the value with text dot current dot value. That will give us the actual value of the input. So I'm going to check this value. I'm going to wrap this in an if statement, and I want to say if this value is not equal to nothing, then I want to run that filter contacts method that we have. Okay, and that filter contacts is part of the contact context. And I'll just go ahead and do contact context dot filter contacts. Okay, and then we can pass in the e dot target dot value, which will be the actual text. Okay, else then let's go ahead and run clear filter. So we'll say contact context dot clear filter. And if you want to destructure and pull those methods out, you can do that. Now, I'm also going to use effect, because if filtered is equal to null, if the filtered part of our state is equal to null, I want the value to be empty. I don't want it to keep text inside of it. So I'm also going to bring in useEffect. And we'll go right here and say useEffect. Pass in our arrow function here and say if. And you know what, let's pull this stuff out because I don't want to keep having to write this. I think it'll look nicer if we just pull this stuff out of context. So we'll go right here and say const, and let's grab filter contacts, clear filter, and filtered. Pull that from that, and then we don't have to do this. Get rid of those. And here I'm just going to say if filtered is equal to null, then let's set text.current.value. We can access that since we used useRef, and set it to nothing. Okay? And I think that should do it. So let's insert this or embed it into Home.js. So we'll go to Home.js and bring it in. Contact filter, I called it, right? Okay, and then we're going to put it right above contacts. Okay, now if we go back, you can see we have our filter contacts component. Now, if I type something in here like J, you'll see that the UI isn't responding. That's because we're not looking at filtered, we're looking at contacts, and that's not what is being manipulated. If we look at our state here, if we go to provider and go to value and look in filtered, which is right here, you'll see that there's actually one object in here, and it's Jill at Gmail. If I do Gmail, all of our contacts have the word Gmail inside their email. Remember, we're including the name and the email, so we have 3 objects in the filtered. If I do S, we have 2, because it's just looking for any S. So Jill Johnson and Sarah Watson come up. If I do SA, we get 1, which is Sarah Watson. So it's working, it's just we haven't hooked it up in the UI yet. So let's do that. Let's go into contacts. Okay, so we're going to go into contacts, and we already have the context brought in. So we need to figure out if there's anything inside of filtered or not. If there is, then that's what we want to show. So let's pull out filtered from our context. And actually, you know what? One thing that I forgot to do real quick. If there's no contacts, then let's say, please add a contact. So I'll say if contacts dot length is equal to 0, then let's return an H4, and we'll say please add a contact. Okay, so it's just something I forgot to put in earlier. All right, now down here, we need to figure out if there's anything in filtered. So I'm just going to go right above this for now, and let's say if filtered is not equal to null. That means that there's something in there. So let's say if that's true, then let's take what's in filtered and let's map through it. And we'll say for each filtered contact, then we're going to load the contact item just like we did here. So I'll actually just grab that. And then we're going to have an else, which is going to go, let's see, did I do this right? Yeah, contact. Let's wrap this in parentheses like that, and then we'll do an else. Then we want contacts. Actually, I'll just copy what we have here because we just want to do this. So we want to copy what we have in here and put that right here, and then get rid of this. Okay, so I'm going to save that. So just to reiterate what's happening, we're pulling filtered out and contacts, and then we're checking to see if there's anything in filtered. If there is, if it's not null, that means there's something in it. Then we're going to map through that and show the contact item. If there's nothing in filtered, then we're going to show the contacts. Okay, or filtered is null, I should say. So let's go back and let's try it out. Let's put J, and there we go. It narrows it down to any name or email with a J. If I do S, we get both of them because there's an S in both either the name or the email. If I do SA, narrows it down to Sarah. If I do, F, then there's no match. And then once I clear it, it shows all of our contacts. All right, so I think we're getting there, guys. We almost have the contacts UI done. What I want to do in the next video is do some optional animation, just a little bit of a fade when we delete and when we add contacts. Okay, so this is not needed. You don't need to do this if you don't want to, if you don't want to add the extra code, but I want to show you just a way we can use the CSS transition group package so that we can add a little bit of a fade effect.